Hello, finally, it's been a while, I'm back. I'm gonna try to regularly make videos, again. Today, we're starting off, my return with Raymond Carver's collection, Cathedral. Raymond Carver was basically, one of the more famous short story writers of kind of modern era. I mean, I guess he died like 27 years ago, 28 years ago. Anyway, so he was born in 1938 and died in 1988. And his working years were pretty much from 1958 to 1988 is kind of when he was actually working on writing. So Carver is most commonly associated with minimalism, which is just basically it's distinguished by its economy of words and using like surface description of things, and it really doesn't give you a whole lot of detail. You can think of like a Hemingway kind of style where it forces the reader to pick sides basically of what they think is going on or what the subtext is without giving too much away. Or the goal, I guess, is just to give enough to give something ambiguity and then to kind of have the reader to work through it. An offshoot of minimalism that Carver is really associated with is called dirty realism, which is minimalist, but also it focuses on depicting something either seamier or more mundane aspects of life. And again, with this sparse language and this focus on ambiguity and forcing the reader to decide what's happening. Some of the more important figures that are associated with dirty realism are Charles Bukowski's often considered like the father of dirty realism. You have like obviously Carver, Tobias Wolff, Cormac McCarthy is sometimes associated with it, and Pedro Juan Gutierrez, who is Cuban and who wrote the Dirty Havana trilogy, it's dirty realism, anything like that. So Carver is from Oregon. And then basically, as a young adult, he moved to California, Northern California, for a little bit. And that's where he really got interested in writing. So he has a poetry, but he also has, I think there were 3 short story collections published within his own life. And then shortly after his death, I think they did like a collected short story collection, but added a couple more stories that hadn't been published in the collection yet. I've read one other, plus I've read Cathedral, and I just bought his other short story collection, Will You Please Be Quiet, Please. I like Carver a lot. But Cathedral, which was the last of the 3 to be published, was published in 1983, so only 5 years before he died. Basically, throughout the whole thing, so throughout this whole book, you have minimalist language, you have dirty realism. There's a real focus on either the lower class or shabby places. You have very sparse language, and you are forced to decide what is going on. What is the subtext? And I think that's like a trademark of Carver's, all of his short stories, is sometimes you feel like, okay, there's something crazy going on, but I don't know exactly what it is. And I really like that. It's interesting when it's done well. A theme that kind of runs throughout all of Cathedral is alcohol and its destructive effects on people and families. And it's interesting because Carver was an alcoholic, and I think he quit. I think he went to rehab and got over his drinking problem later on in his life. Although he still had drug issues, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think, as far as I can understand, when I was doing the research for this, he's kind of stated that although he quit drinking, he might have picked up some other habits, although they weren't as bad. But anyway, you have a lot of scenes or different issues where alcohol kind of ruins or was the vehicle for ruining this like perfect moment or this good situation. Some of the standout stories would be Chef's House, which is about a kind of a recovering alcoholic who's staying in a home that is owned by another former alcoholic who's letting him stay there to kind of get his life back together, and he's staying there with his wife. That's a really good story. Vitamins is about a dude whose wife sells vitamins and this whole fiasco with her friend. Where I'm calling from is a really good story. Is about people in like I think like a rehab kind of situation, where you're hearing kind of the backstory between these two dudes. And Cathedral, which is the title story and arguably probably Carver's most famous story overall, and his most critically acclaimed story. And I had to read it for a class a couple years ago, and that's what got me into Carver. Is basically the story of it's about a guy. It's from this man's perspective, whose wife knew this blind man that she had met when she had just got out of school, and she had over the summer read to the blind man every day, and they got to know each other and they kept in contact. So now this blind man is coming to visit the husband and wife, and the husband is a little jealous because the blind man has known his wife longer than he has, and they have a really close relationship. And so it's kind of, and it morphs in like this whole thing. It's really, really interesting. I highly suggest going and checking it out. Cathedral, the collection, is probably Carver's most critically acclaimed collection. Although I really liked what we talk about when we talk about love. Which, by the way, if you've ever seen Birdman, one of the stories, the title story from that, is basically the play that they're putting on within Birdman. And there's some other Carver stuff that pops up within Birdman, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, as well as Hamlet. Not Hamlet. Macbeth. God, I'm an idiot. Anyway, yeah, so go, if you're interested, if you like minimalism, if you like dirty realism, definitely check out Carver. I really appreciate his stories. I would say read them in the order that they were published, so you can really see the evolution, because Cathedral is a little bit more polished than what we talk about when we talk about love, although I think I like that one a little better. But anyway, yeah, pick up Cathedral. I highly recommend it. And as always, have a happy life and enjoy reading.